Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching a brand new edition of Policy Watch with me, Frank Pereira. Well, putting economic growth revival in the spotlight, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday reconstituted the Economic Advisory Council under the chairmanship of Niti Aayog member Bibek Debroy. The move, which comes in the backdrop of increasing concerns over weakening GDP growth momentum, signals that the Prime Minister will be closely scrutinizing future economic policy. The Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council is an independent body designed to guide the government on policy decisions. On this edition of Policy Watch, we will take a closer look at the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. Joining me on the program today are S.P.Sharma, Chief Economist, PhD, Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Priya Ranjan, Senior Journalist. Thank you to both my guests for joining me on this edition of Policy Watch. Priya Ranjan, I'd like to begin with you. What is the role really of the EAC? Is it just going to be limited to macroeconomic factors, or it's going to expand beyond that as well?
Well, if the EAC is coming into being after 3 years. So, if you look at its terms of reference, the terms of reference is anything that the Prime Minister refers to the Economic Advisory Council, the Council will work on that. Besides that, it will be an independent council and can take up issues or subject or suo motu. Now, so the scope is there for anything and everything. And in the past, if you look at it, the previous Economic Advisory Council, which used to be PM's Economic Advisory Council, PMEAC,
yes,
that tackled all kinds of issues other than the macroeconomic issues, the overall economy and its management. It was given contentious issues to study and come out with policies such as the gas pricing, such as the sugar industry, the areas and the sugar restrictions, sugar control, etc. So, various specific issues were assigned to it, and it came up with its recommendations, which were then translated into policy by the previous government. Now, Prime Minister Modi and the present government has had, I would say, talent deficit in terms of its economic, thinking. And so, although late, I think this is a realization that the government can do with some professional advice. So, the Economic Advisory Council has come about after 3 years, and I believe that this will serve a very useful purpose, particularly since now the economy seems to be on a tailspin.
Sure.
And on a downslide. So, there are very serious issues of concern where professional economists and their advice will work for the government. Though that is so I think that this Economic Advisory Council will have a very wide mandate to work on, and how much actually it delivers is one has to see.
Right.
But clearly there is work to be done, and there is work to be done in terms of the overall economic policy issues, and also in terms of microeconomic policy issues and sectoral policy issues that the Economic Advisory Council will need to deliberate on and advise the government accordingly.
Fair enough. S.P. Sharma, as far as the challenges are concerned, what do you think are the biggest challenges for the EAC?
Biggest challenge is to revive the growth trajectory, because now we are at 5.7% only, which is much below as compared with the previous 3 years. So, the anticipation was that growth will enter in the higher trajectory in the coming times, like more than 8%, but that growth has declined significantly from the 7.6% to 5.7%. That is a big concern. And second is to generate employment opportunities, because economy is facing severe problems in employment generation. Though the skill development is there, skill development efforts are there, but the employment is not that much intact during the last few years because of so many factors, because growth is coming majorly from the services sector, and manufacturing growth is not that much lucrative. So we have to focus on the manufacturing sector to generate employment opportunities in the economy. And for the manufacturing sector, there is space in the MSMEs that needs to be looked very seriously. Because the sector has potential to generate a lot of employment opportunities, but the sector is full of problems, starting from the financial problems to the stringent labor laws and the capital requirements. So all these things becomes crucial at this juncture for the Prime Minister Advisory Council to check problems in these sectors and to provide relief and to give boost to them for a good growth in the coming times.
You know, as far as the Economic Advisory Council is concerned, it clearly shows that the Prime Minister is keen on doing something with the economy. He understands that the economy is in a tailspin at this point in time. But will the EAC, interfere with the working of the Finance Ministry? Does this mean that the Finance Ministry's wings have been clipped?
Not at all. I don't think so. You see, the approach of the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister has spoken about it, that hard work, as he said, is more important than Harvard. So, clearly there is a realization now that you need hard work. So, initially, if you look at it, in terms of the economic management, the bureaucracy and the government itself, the people working in the government, they are putting in hard work, making business easy, and just reforms that were all attempted. These were required and have to be accelerated, clearly. But you also, the government is not the reservoir of all the knowledge in the world. So you need to tap into professional knowledge resources that is available outside. And so, be it Harvard or whatever. So the Harvard needs to be come in as an input into the process, because the challenges, as have been pointed out, are quite tough challenges. So if you have to meet it, you have to do both hard work and Harvard input. So the Harvard input has to come in. So I think this is important, that you have experts, professional advice coming in form of the Economic Advisory Council. It doesn't interfere with the working of ministries as such. Their policy initiatives and the ideas that are coming in from these ministries and the work that they are doing, I think they should continue to do that, and they will do that. They will put in that hard work that we have seen the government has been doing in the last 3 years. But I think it will need to also need this expert advice from outside. This government has had a problem in terms of very thin resources internally, and that is why we know that there have been certain policies which have been, I would say, misplaced in many ways, and the government was perhaps ill-advised to have initiated those policies, which it perhaps wouldn't have done, or the sequencing of those steps would have been different had the government got the benefit of professional economists advising them. Because you see, in economics, you have one thing following the other.
Right.
And unless the entire chain is thought through, and you could land up, the policy misfiring, and in fact, instead of doing good, it will do harm. Like we know that to the couple of policy issues, the way these have been handled, with all good intentions, have actually landed up harming, the economic growth in the country. Whether these are all short-term setbacks or they will have a longer-term impact, that is yet to be seen. But clearly, they have had an impact, and perhaps those would have been avoided.
Clearly, they've had an impact, and they've got the Prime Minister's attention as well to deal with the issues such as this. the Prime Minister's intent is very clear at the moment, Mr. Sharma. He clearly wants to get the economy back on track, and that's why he's thought about, meeting the Finance Minister, meeting officials from the Finance Ministry. He's set up this reconstituted, rather, this EAC. So his intent is very clear. He understands that the next 2 years are going to be dedicated to the economy, and he wants to get the economy back on track at the earliest.
Yes, focus should be on the domestic issues. Like we have to go a long way in the domestic issues, like ease of doing business. Ease of doing business not only to look good in the international charts, but actual business at the ground level. That is required for the starting from SME sector. So that can be a good growth engine for the coming times for the whole of the economy. That can give a good boost to the economic growth, because MSMEs has potential to grow faster as compared with the large businesses. They have good potential, but if facilitated by the good policy environment and conducive environment.
There is talk of the stimulus as well, 40,000 crores, 50,000 crores. Nobody really knows what that figure is. Is that a good thing?
Yes, stimulus will be good for the economy at this juncture, but there are a lot of issues in the fiscal scenario also. So one has to look into all those issues. But I would say a lot of reforms will happen in the state's trajectory. Like land is a major issue for the availability of industrialization. So states should also focus on the availability of land for the industry, for the development of industry, their respective trajectories. And the second is the labor laws, which is a major crucial problem for the Indian economy. That should be tackled as soon as possible, because now most of the industries, lot of industries in the MSME sector are not able to deploy labor in their premises because of the stringent labor laws. So that should be focused. And third is to revive the export growth trajectory at the higher level. So there are a lot of problems in the logistics segment. Few states are good in exporting their products, but the transitional states are not providing the good infrastructure for the transportation of trucks and transportation of other things. So that should be focused to look into the stalled projects. Those projects should be cleared as soon as possible to give a good boost to the export growth trajectory. So exports at this juncture, revival of exports, because now the global economy is reviving. The growth is anticipated higher as compared with the previous years. So at this juncture, we have good opportunity to enhance our exports growth and to give a boost to the small businesses in India, because they should also they are also supplying to the large businesses for their products to export in the international market. So that will be a good opportunity for the Indian economy at this juncture if the exports are looked seriously with the improvement in infrastructure at the state level. And the third thing is to focus on the employment generating areas. Like we have a lot of opportunities in the employment generation. So if the industry, if the manufacturing sector is going to deploy a few people, they should be incentivized. With the government is talking about some incentives. So the incentives should be linked to the employment generation. That will resolve the two problems in the system. One is to generate employment opportunities, and second to revive the growth trajectory. That will be a win-win situation for the industry and for the government and for the people, those who are seeking jobs.
Very well summed up. Well, on that note, it's time for a short break now. On the other side, the Agriculture Ministry has estimated food grain production at 134.7 million tons for the 2017-18 Kharif crop season, 2.8% lower than last year. We'll discuss its impact in our next segment. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The art of painting comes to us from the prehistoric period. Paintings are also a valuable source of information about their age. Like this depiction of the wedding procession of Dharashikoh. The eldest son of Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan had a Mughal wedding with distinctive Indian elements. Like the veil he wears to the pomp and show of the Bharat in Hindu weddings.
Welcome back. You're watching Policy Watch with me, Frank Pereira. Production of Kharif crops this year is likely to be lower than last year. The Agriculture Ministry said in its first advance estimates, with the only exception being sugarcane. Production of food grains such as rice, pulses and coarse cereals is likely at 134.7 million tons in 2017-18, about 2.8% below last year's record crop of 138.5 million tons. Production of oilseeds is likely to fall by 7.7%. For cotton, despite 19% higher sowing year-on-year by farmers, production is estimated to fall in 2017-18 due to lower productivity. In our next segment, we will analyze what impact will the dip in Kharif crop output have. Joining me on the program now are Tajamul Haque, former chairman, Commission for Agricultural Cost and Prices, and K.A. Badrinath, editor, Policy, the Financial Chronicle. Thank you to both my guests for joining me on Policy Watch. K. Badrinath, I'd like to begin with you. What kind of an impact is this going to have on the economy, the fall in Kharif crop output?
My guess is this is just an initial estimate, like you said, the first advance estimate. And secondly, the impact as such on the rural economy or the economy as a whole is likely to be very modest. Second. Third issue is there is every possibility of these figures getting revised little later in the day. Because all through they have been saying that the monsoon would be either normal or above normal. And now there is a little bit of a revision in the figures, which seems to be pushing the ministry or the government to say that there is likelihood of a fall in the food grains production or output. But at the same time, we have a lot of buffer stocks which can still take care of our requirements, number one. Number two, if you decide to push up the prices in the domestic market to give better return for the farmer, perhaps you can even do the exports. For example, some of the pulses, the export restrictions that were there have been lifted just recently last week. So the issue here is that the impact on the overall economy may not be too huge that we cannot deal with it.
Even if there is an impact, it will be marginal, is what you're suggesting. Yes.
And second issue here is, yes, with industrial production being very modest and your manufacturing sector not showing a very huge growth or something, yes, there is obvious reason that there might be a lot more dependence on the agriculture and rural sector to make up for the possible losses in the industrial sector.
Sure.
Also, the services have not done, like you used to have earlier, double-digit growth. Now you don't see double-digit growth in services. If that is not there, then normally you always fall back on the agriculture for making it up. When there is agriculture production at a very good level, that means your growth parameters or growth prospects are going to be very good. The day agriculture falls, there's bound to be little bit of always a concern within the establishment and outside on the impact.
Sure. Tajamul Haque, Mr. Badrinath brought up the issue of rain being normal this time around, and it seems as it stands right now, rain could possibly be of about 5% this time around. But the problem this time around is the fact that we've not had even distribution of rain. Some areas there's a lot of floods, some areas are facing drought-like situation already. Are these factors going to impact the agri sector?
Actually, that is what is going to impact, and that's why this even first advance estimates has been revised downward. The point is, in several parts of the country there was a acute shortage of water, particularly rain in the month of August. And in some parts you have seen both in August and September there is flood. So floods will affect your production adversely as well as the drought. And but then overall impact wise, I think you don't see much for two reasons. One thing is that, say for instance in the case of cereals or pulses. Pulses, we had a bumper production last year to 23 million tons and our demand is more or less that level. And we at the same time we also imported from outside and also we produced outside Mozambique and other places and brought it here. So all this had actually surplus pulse availability as compared to what you need here. That is one reason why they removed those export restrictions.
But oil seeds continue to be a problem.
Pulses, this year it is not a problem, but this has to be sustained the way it has been done. In the sense, pulse production should continue to be at that high level, so that the pulses prices also can be contained, and then the poor people's, it is the main source of protein, so poor people should continue to have nutritious food and all that. So that is one thing. But then coming to other things like yeah, oil seeds is equally a problem, because we import huge quantities of edible oils from outside, and this year again, if they say 2 million tons less of oil seeds production, that will, you know, have impact on the market prices of edible oils, and also you may have to import more. So this is one. But in the case of rice and other cereals, I think it is not so much of a problem, because as Badri also rightly said, we have a huge buffer stockage on today. So immediately this may not, you know, create that kind of adverse impact so much. So this is broadly the kind of thing. As far as food availability is concerned, it is not a serious issue, because we have both pulses as on today, adequate quantity, and also the cereals as adequate quantity. But edible oils, yes, I think we need to be concerned, because your import bill will go up.
Right.
And also the prices are likely to go up.
Sure. You know, from the high of 4.9% in 2016-17, is the agri sector going to slide this year and the years after that?
See, this is just as we discussed earlier, it is too early to make an estimate as to what will be the kind of impact. As to my guess is it will be very minimal.
Sure.
Number one. Number two, also it's that we are not going to be at 4.9% forever, because the ground situation has not changed in a very big way. Also, let us not forget that in the first few months, we also had a little bit of disruption in the rural economy and informal sectors because of the rollout of the demonetization. Then there's a lot of change in the structural way you are dealing with the industry as well as the farmers because of the GST. This lingering impact seems to have also coupled with the little bit of the reduced production that we are talking about in terms of the output. So the combined impact could be maybe perhaps less than about 0.5% or less.
So the farmer income doubling by 2020, is that realistically possible, or is the deadline unrealistic?
See, the farmer's income by 2022 is a doable thing. But how do we do it is the biggest issue here. Unless the reforms go down to the wire and takes to the lowest strata of the country, it cannot happen. Secondly, subsidies are not going to help the farmer here and there, some 1,000 rupees here or 2,000 rupees
Some of
there.
them have got 10 paisa also.
Some people have got 10 paisa, which is not going to help you anyway. Leave the farmers to do their work on their own. Number one, whatever supportive structures you can give in terms of infrastructure, in terms of linking them to the market, in terms of technology, in terms of seeds, in terms of these things you give. Just let us not shackle them with pricing curves. No, people, I don't know how they are going to react, the consumers. Henceforth, you want always the sacrifices from farmers. Why should farmer be at the receiving end every time? It's not possible. And let him be. Will industry be stopped from selling its products at a particular price? If that is not there, then why should farmer be stopped from, this is the regulated price, and the price is also not related to what is there in the market situation. Then again, there is a lot of corruption, leakage, substandard stuff getting into the PDS system. So
there are lots of challenges, and all of them need to be addressed at the earliest. It's a doable thing by 2022 is what you're suggesting, but all these issues need to be fixed first. Yes. True. Very rightly put. Now non-crop sectors, Mr. Haque, like fisheries, forestry, and there is also livestock, can they compensate for the loss in the farm-based sector?
Yes, certainly. I think there is a lot of emphasis also currently on Blue Revolution. Prime Minister, wherever he goes, he talks about it. And there are several other new things are coming up in terms of organic farming and also honey, kind of revolution. He says this is sweet revolution. Sweet revolution means more and more farms in an integrated way, they should go for beekeeping.
Yes.
and 15,
Yes.
16. 16, 17 only was reasonably good, and this year again it is a mixed kind of picture. So as on today you say marginal, but afterwards it can be even revised downwards. You never know.
Yes.
Some pockets are badly affected. Drought. Bihar, what do you expect? Some parts of Bihar are flooded, already flooded, and some parts did not get any rain at all.
Right.
Bengal, similar is the situation. So like that, I think this can be revised not just upward, it can be even revised
Downward
downward.
as well.
So all these things have to be kept in mind. But overall, the government is doing its best from all angles, and then trying to see how farmers' income can be improved.
Right, that's all the time we have on this edition of Policy Watch. I'd like to thank both my guests, Tajamul Haque and Badrinath, for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's all the time we have today. See you again next time.